Wanted to log on and talk a little bit about meditation and mindfulness. I've got a couple of the other admins that are going to be joining me today, so they're going to be logging in here shortly. Um, so, Mindful Mondays, how exciting a time to check in with ourselves, the reminder to be present and to bring the awareness into the body, into our thoughts. Um, so I've spent a lot of time, practicing meditation and mindfulness. And one of the biggest pieces I like is to simplify it, to break it down. Because I think sometimes when we begin to cultivate the practice, we kind of have a misunderstanding of what it might look like. So for me, meditation is really being present with ourselves, being aware of what our thoughts are. So we're not going to sit down to meditate and clear our minds or not think, but rather we're wanting to be aware of what we are thinking, what we're creating through our thoughts. So I think of meditation as the act of being. We are coming down from our heads into our hearts. And through that space, we are able to understand what we're thinking about. We can then choose how we engage with our thoughts. Are we consciously choosing what we're thinking about, or are we allowing ourselves to spiral into a never ending loop of thoughts that we don't even want to engage in? It's being aware of what's happening within our body. How is our body speaking to us, and are we listening? So for me, meditation is being present with all that's present for us, without attachment to what that looks like. So for me, I really like just the simplicity of remembering that we are our breath, and we can step into the breath at any point in time. We can just choose to breathe. And when we choose to focus on the breath, we're choosing what we're thinking about. We're thinking about the breath. We're being present. And that's why breath work is so important and conscious breathing, because we're just allowing ourselves to be in that state of being. And that is meditation. So, mindfulness is what we cultivate in meditation, how we're present with ourselves, and how we begin to become aware. And then we take that out into the world. So, mindfulness is how we put our awareness practices into the act of doing. How can we be in this world and be mindful of what we're thinking, what we're creating for ourselves, and the impact of that? Are we aware of the impact that our thoughts have on others, of the ripple effect of what we're creating and what we're doing? And so that's kind of the difference for me when we're looking at meditation and how to practice mindfulness. It all begins with the time that we spend with ourselves and bringing ourselves into awareness. So when we go out into the world, we are then able to have more conscious interactions. We're able to build conscious relationships. We're aware of the consciousness of all life and how we engage and interact with one another, how we are all interconnected. um, and so I like to think of mindfulness as the checking in, remembering to breathe, remembering to be conscious, to slow down, and not get wrapped up in the chaos of the world. We are essentially taking our peace that we found within ourselves and not letting the world shake us out of that state of being. Anyone can go out and meditate and find peace in the solitude, but how do we ground into that peace and take that out into the world? And that ultimately is the mindfulness practice. Um, And one of my favorites that I've studied is Thich Nhat Hanh. He was one of my first teachers in meditation and mindfulness. And I love how he always talks about finding reminders to breathe, finding reminders to be grateful and thankful that we're alive, and how those reminders are what help us to build that practice. Things like getting stuck, we stop at a stoplight or a stop sign, or we hear a bell, or we hear a certain sound, and we begin to program ourselves to use those reminders as an opportunity to check in with ourselves, with our breath. And so those reminders are all around us. And so what we're really wanting to do is train our brain to, shift into that, to not get caught up in our thoughts, in what's happening around us, in all of the dramas and the stories and the suffering of the world, so that we can be beings of light and peace and bring love into the world. So we really have to separate ourselves from what's happening in order to build this space. So I want you all, or I encourage you all today, just to take some time to focus on your breathing, to not really have any attachment to what these practices look like, but rather just allow them to unfold in a natural way for you. Take time to enjoy a meal and silence. Take time to just sit in nature and breathe and hone into being grateful for your breath, for all life, for the gift of being here. And as often as you can, just remember to drop down into your heart, into your breath, and find the peace that is there present for you below the surface. So I hope this has been helpful. I've enjoyed this time with you guys, and I hope everyone has a lovely Mindful Monday. Love and light.